Minus nothing. A 68-year-old woman in a cardigan walks into a casino with $800 in her purse. 3 weeks later, the house has lost over $300,000 to her, and they can't figure out how she's doing it. No card counting, no partner, no device. Just a grandmother and a baccarat table. And here's the part that'll bother you. When they finally barred her, they couldn't even tell her why. Let me back up. Her name was Eleanor. We'll leave it at that because the casino never wanted this getting out, and to this day they've never admitted what really happened. But the people who worked the pit that month, they remember her. Oh, they remember her. She wasn't a whale. She didn't roll in on a junket with bodyguards and a line of credit a mile long. She showed up alone, drove herself, parked in the regular lot, wore the same beige cardigan most nights, the kind of woman you'd hold the elevator for and forget about by the time the doors opened. And that right there is exactly why this story is so good. Because the house has a system for everything. They know what a card counter looks like. They know the tells of a shuffle tracker. They've got the eye in the sky watching every stack, every wager, every flick of the wrist. Their whole business is built on one thing. The math always wins. The house edge is small, but it's relentless. Play long enough, and the casino takes its cut. Always. Eleanor broke that, and nobody could explain it. Here's how it started. She came in on a Tuesday, quiet night, sat down at a baccarat table, not the high-limit room, just the regular floor. Bought in for $800. The dealer barely looked up. Why would he? Baccarat is the simplest game on the floor. You bet on the player hand or the banker hand. You don't make decisions. You don't get to hit or stand. The cards come out of the shoe and the rules play themselves. It's pure chance. The house edge on the banker bet is about 1%. There is no skill. None. That's what makes this impossible. That first night she won. Not big, a few thousand. Colored up, said goodnight to the dealer and left. The pit boss didn't blink. She came back Wednesday, won again. Came back Thursday, won again. By the end of week 1, this little grandmother in the beige cardigan was up about $40,000. Now, and here's where it gets interesting. 40 grand at Baccarat isn't unheard of. People get hot. Variance is a real thing. You can win for a week straight and it means nothing. The casino knows this. So they smiled, they comped her dinner, they brought her a nice room. Because in their minds, this was a gift, a lucky streak that would correct itself. The math always comes home. It didn't come home. Week 2, she's up over 100,000. Week 3, north of 300,000. And now the pit is sweating. Because here's the thing about a winning streak. It's supposed to break. That's not hope, that's arithmetic. The longer she plays, the more the house edge should grind her down. Instead, the opposite is happening. The more she plays, the more she wins. That's not variance anymore. That's a pattern. And patterns mean something. So they did what any casino does. They pulled the tapes. The eye in the sky watched every single hand, frame by frame. They watched her hands, watched her eyes, watched the dealer, watched the shoe. They brought in their best surveillance people, the kind who've caught edge sorters reading the tiny imperfections on the backs of cards from across a room. They watched for signals, a partner in the crowd, a device, a tell. Nothing. She wasn't touching the cards. In Baccarat, on most tables, the player never even handles them. The dealer does everything. She wasn't marking anything. She wasn't counting, because counting Baccarat for an edge that size is basically useless. She wasn't signaling anyone, because there was no one to signal. She'd sit there, sip her water, place her bet, usually on the banker, and just win. And here's the detail almost nobody knows about how casinos actually think. When the house can't explain a loss, it terrifies them more than the loss itself. A casino can lose $1 million to a whale on a bad night and shrug. That's the cost of doing business. But losing money you can't explain? That means there's a hole in the system. And if there's a hole, it can be exploited again. By her. By anyone. So the unexplained win isn't a money problem. It's an existential one. So let me ask you this, and I genuinely want to know what you think. If you were running that casino, watching a grandmother quietly take 300 grand off your floor, and your surveillance team swears up and down she's doing nothing wrong, do you let her keep playing and hope the math finally kicks in? Or do you cut her off? Drop your answer below because the people who ran this place couldn't agree either, and it nearly split the floor in two. Some of the pit crew thought she was just the luckiest woman alive. Streaks happen. Let it ride. It'll correct. Others were convinced she'd found something. Some flaw in their shuffle, some pattern in their shoe, something nobody had ever caught. And a few of them, quietly, started to get superstitious about it. Grown men who run the most coldly mathematical business on earth getting nervous about a lady in a cardigan. Now, by the way, if you like the unexplained stuff, the cases where the house gets beaten and can't figure out how, we've got a whole video on edge sorting and the high roller who took casinos for tens of millions using nothing but the patterns on the backs of the cards. It's one of the wildest things in this whole world, and it's already up. Worth your time. But back to Eleanor. 3 weeks in, the house made its decision. They backed her off. And the way they did it tells you everything. They didn't accuse her of anything. They couldn't. You can't bar someone for cheating if you have zero evidence of cheating. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. And in a private casino, here's the part most people don't realize. The house doesn't actually need a reason. On their property, they reserve the right to refuse service to almost anyone. So a man in a sharp suit walked over to her table, very politely, and told her that her play was no longer welcome. She asked the obvious question, the only question, why? And he couldn't answer it. He literally could not tell her what she'd done wrong, because nobody knew. He just repeated in that calm, corporate voice that the casino was within its rights, that her chips would be honored, and that they'd cover her room one last time. $300,000+ in winnings, cashed out clean, and a polite escort to the door for a crime nobody could name. Here's what makes me believe this one is real. A casino that catches a cheater wants you to know. They press charges, they make examples, they send the message, don't try it here. But a casino that's been beaten and doesn't know how? They go quiet. They make the problem disappear and they never speak of it again. The silence is the confession. So what was she actually doing? There are a few theories, and I'll give you the honest version. Theory 1, and the boring one, is pure variance. It's possible. A streak that long is astronomically unlikely, but unlikely isn't impossible. Somebody, somewhere, is the 1 in 10 million. Maybe it was her. Theory 2 is that she was a shuffle tracker, and the casino never realized how good she'd gotten. If the shuffle on that particular table was lazy, and on a quiet floor late at night, it often is, a sharp enough mind can follow clumps of high-value cards through the shuffle and into the shoe, and bet accordingly. No device, no partner, just pattern recognition that looks, from the outside, exactly like luck. Theory 3, my favorite, is that she'd quietly clocked one specific dealer's habits, a tiny tell. The way he riffled the shoe, the angle he held the cards, something so small that even the eye in the sky, watching for the usual stuff, never thought to look for it. We'll never know, because the only two parties who could tell us, the casino and Eleanor, both walked away and stayed silent. The house, because admitting a flaw is bad for business, and Eleanor, because she walked out 300 grand richer, and the smartest thing a winner can ever do is keep her mouth shut. So here's where I leave it with you. 2 camps and you have to pick one. Camp 1. She was just lucky, full stop, and a nervous casino panicked and barred an innocent old woman over a coincidence. Camp 2. That grandmother in the beige cardigan figured out something the sharpest minds in surveillance never could, and quietly beat the most beating-proof game on the floor right under the eye in the sky. Which one are you? Tell me in the comments, because honestly, the more I look at this one, the less sure I get.